Good evening. I'm here primarily to honor SUB Medical College for a very important reason, and that reason is the three most precious relationships that I have in my life have something to do with SUB Medical College. My wife was born here, and my two daughters were born here. And I'm deeply, deeply grateful that SUB Medical College has given me all the love of my life. The second reason I'm here is to honor my childhood friend, Dr. Vidyut Das, who has been an inspiration for us in many, many ways for the selfless work that he continues to do. In the little time that I have with you, I want to talk to you a little bit about a very important subject that I discerned for myself and I share with professionals like you, which I did by looking at many high-performance individuals over a period of time. What is it that they are made of, and how is it that two people with very similar background, how is it that they achieve very different outcome? So I call this the idea of platform and purpose, and let me talk to you about that. So if we look at the slide here, think of this as a X, Y, matrix. And on the Y-axis, you will find the idea of a platform. Our lives are nothing but a platform. So each one of you in the audience, me, if we look at our own lives deeply, we'll find that we're made up broadly of 6 things. First and foremost, we're made up of our education. Where do you study? SUB Medical College. So that's your education. That defines you. Now, a time comes when it is no longer your education, but it's also your experience. So I've been a sports surgeon for the last 18 years. Somebody will say that, I have been practicing a gynecologist. I'm a practicing gynecologist for the last 10 years. So that's experience. So your education, your experience. But the time comes when your education and experience are not enough, and you need to fall back on other people's education and experience as well. So the third element comes in, which is your network, and doctors know this very well. One doctor makes a phone call, and doctors across the world get activated. The power is in the network. Who you know sometimes is more important than what you know. So your education, your experience, your network. A time comes when you also need your net worth. How much money do you have in the bank? Your spouse is working or not? Because that determines your risk-taking capability. But beyond that is also your family. The family you came from and the family that you raise. And last but not the least, it's your body. How well is your body carrying you? If I were not to be carried by my body today, and I come here, I don't think I'll be welcome for this conversation. So what is the shape in which your body is matters a lot. Now, these 6 things broadly define who you are. The interplay of these 6 things define who you are. People may say that, so what happens to values and what happens to, ideals and values and culture? I would argue that your values are an interplay of these 6 things. If you're born into a different family, you hang out with a different kind of network, your values will change. You don't study in SUB Medical College, you study in some other place, your values will change. So values are an outcome of these 6 things. So this is a platform. But what you do with this platform is determined by your purpose. The same platform will have very different outcome for 2 different people because it's the purpose that determines what you will do with your platform. And what's purpose? Purpose is what I define as impact over a period of time. So it is I to the power of T. So if you're with me until now, it's a very simple matrix. What we'll do is we'll turn this into a 2x2 matrix. Okay? So if you go to this slide here, you'll find that if I look at the y-axis and the x-axis, you could have 4 potential outcomes. So you have some people who will be low platform and low purpose, some people who will be low platform but high purpose, some people will be high platform and low purpose, and some people will be high platform and high purpose. So look at the GP who will actually write prescriptions for penicillin to slum dwellers and will send people unnecessarily for path lab tests and for ultrasound checkups and get a referral. So that guy is a low platform and low purpose guy. And then there's this corporate doctor, the good-looking chap, who will be actually flirting from OT to OT, from different corporate hospital to different corporate hospital. That guy is actually high platform and low purpose. It's a very high platform. Will be actually operating with state-of-the-art equipment. Will be, the talk of town, toast of town, across different super specialty hospitals. Then there are people who are low platform and high purpose. So think of Dr. Prakash Amte and Mandakini Amte. Think of Abhay Banga and Rani Banga and the kind of work that they do in the remotest parts of Maharashtra, who are redefining what it means to deliver rural health care. So those are people who have given up everything. They could have been in Harvard, they could have been in Johns Hopkins, they could have been in Stanford Medical, but they choose to do what they do, and they do it in a low platform but high purpose manner. And then there are some people who are actually high platform and high purpose. So think of Christian Barnard, the first surgeon who made a human heart transplant happen. Okay? Clearly a man who was playing with a high platform and who had a high purpose. So similarly back home, if we look at the work of Dr. Govinda Venkat Swamy, affectionately called Dr. V, the man who started the Arvind Eye Hospital, which today is the largest eye hospital in the world. He's a man who was deeply concerned about the idea of needless blindness. India is the blindness capital of the world. And he felt that most blindness is needless blindness, need not have happened in the first place. So how do you build a medical model whereby 30% of paying customers can pick up the cost of 70% of patients who cannot afford to pay? So Dr. Govinda Venkat Swamy clearly was a man who was high platform and high purpose. A man who was actually born in a hamlet in a remote place in Tamil Nadu. At the age of 8, heard wailing in the neighborhood, found that a young woman has died at childbirth, and was deeply affected by it. And said, why should people die at childbirth? Decided to be a gynecologist in 1942 in the Indian Army. And he did that, he made it, but within a year of joining the Indian Army as a gynecologist, he had a rare form of rheumatoid arthritis that completely twisted his fingers, and he could not operate. He was discharged by the army. But that man retrained his fingers, retrained himself to become an ophthalmologist, became a government doctor, retired at the age of 58, with his own money started a 13-bed hospital, which today is the largest eye hospital in the world that have done, chain of hospitals that have done millions and millions of operations all over the world. So Dr. V clearly is a man who's high platform and high purpose. So I told you that here is a GP, okay, a referral doctor, corporate good-looking doctor. You have the Bangs and the Amtes, and you have the Dr. V's. Now, what quadrant you belong to actually has very different implications. And let me just talk to you in the next slide about what are the drivers of these 4 categories of people. So if you look at the driver of the referral doctor, the driver is existence. If that doctor rejoices where he comes, or she comes for that matter, without being sexist, in the evening in the clinic to see how long the queue of patients is. Longer the suffering, happier the doctor. Okay? So it's all about existence, my existence. If you look at the driver, key driver of people who are low platform and high purpose, the Bangs and the Amtes, it is about path creation. These are not people who like to walk the given path. These are people who like to create their own path. So Dr. Govinda Venkat Swamy, Dr. V, was wanting to create his own path. He said, needless blindness needs to be obliterated. And for that, he looked at a model like McDonald's and said, if McDonald's can deliver the same quality of burger at low cost, billions of burgers all over the world, we should be able to play the game of scale because we are the blindness capital. And just as McDonald's used scale to drive costs down, we can drive the cost down of eye surgery in this country by working on numbers. So basically, he was creating a new path where no path existed before. If you look at the good-looking corporate doctor who flirts from OT to OT, the driver is consumption. Has to be in the coolest international locations funded by the pharmaceutical companies. Has to be seen in the right medical colleges and institutions. Has to be delivering the right lectures. And consumption here is all about material consumption. Sometimes it is also non-material consumption. If I have one house, now I want two houses. If I have one car, I need two cars. My children have to go to the best medical schools so that they take the baton after me. And of course, I need to be the most published doctor around. So that's also a form of consumption. But if you look at Dr. V, and if you look at Kristen Barnard, if you look at Bidhan Roy, you look at Dr. Bidyut Das, it is about a sense of legacy. They want to leave the world a better place than they have inherited. So they're driven by a sense of legacy. It is not about where you are, who you are, but who is going to come after you. So just as these are the key drivers, I would like to, in the next couple of minutes, tell you about some of the vulnerabilities. Each one is vulnerable in his or her own way. So each of these quadrants comes with its unique set of vulnerability that one should be aware of. So going to the vulnerability, the worst thing that could happen to the referral doctor is false comparison. The guy would say, oh, you know what, I could have been Bidyut Das, but I was not born in a family like his. Now that's false comparison. So similarly, if you look at the people who typically work on a low platform but high purpose model, they tend to have a fear of scale. They don't scale. They do it locally. They become great sandbox of innovation, but it is for other people to then take it on. So they have an inherent fear of scale. Some of them, not all of them. Some of them don't have the fear of scale. The Bangs that I talked about and Dr. Amtes of the world that I talked about are not about fear of scale. They've chosen to create the boundary within which they will work. But many people who work in that quadrant actually are afraid of scale. On the top left-hand corner, it is about irrelevance. This good-looking corporate doctor thinks that he is the most important gift life has given unto itself and is not a replaceable commodity. The hospital exists because I exist. On the other hand, actually, those people pretty much come and go, but the hospital goes on forever. So they are not the most relevant people. They are actually quite irrelevant in the larger scheme of things, but they don't know that. The people who are there in the right top quadrant can suffer sometimes of the God syndrome, that they can do no wrong. And in that quadrant, when they do something wrong, nobody will bring the bad news to them. So going to the next slide, I want to tell you, based on these key drivers and vulnerability, certain very important things that we as would-be doctors should be deeply aware of. 4 things. Number 1, we need to do our own periodic reality check as to which quadrant that I belong to. And you don't need a medical board to ascertain that for you. You don't need your prof to tell you about that. When the lights are out, close your eyes. Today, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, closer to your retirement, on any given day, do your reality check when nobody is listening, nobody is there, and you'll exactly know which of those 4 quadrants you are in. The second important thing is you shouldn't have a false notion of where you are. You shouldn't be on the top left-hand corner and think that you are changing the world, that the world will be a better place because you exist. So you need to be where you are out of choice and suffer no false notions. The third thing is about the choice that I talked about. And last but not the least, we need to understand that people do move from one quadrant to the other. None of the quadrant is a permanent entitlement. Now, in the next couple of minutes, I want to talk to you about a very important thing, and that is about being high platform and high purpose. So people who operate in that quadrant of high platform and high purpose typically are driven by 4 things. Number 1, they're driven by a deep sense of purpose. Your purpose determines your power. Dr. V's purpose of eliminating needless blindness actually determined his power to build the largest eye hospital in the world. The second is they have power of vision. Vision is the ability to see a future so that others may one day live in it. Third, these are people who are deeply stirred by feelings. Now, feelings as an emotion, everything is not data. The most important things in life happen because of feelings, not because of data. And these feelings are for people who are far removed from you. These are not people who are your friends and family. They're people who have nothing to do with you. Further the distance between you and the beneficiary, greater is the chance of success. Last but not the least, these are people who have a long view of time because great things, good things, take a long time. I want to close my presentation to you this evening by giving you a quote from the Kathopanishad that says, "You are what your deep driving desire is. You are what your deep driving desire is. As is your desire, so is your will. As is your will, so is your act. And as is your act, so is your destiny." Thank you very much. It was a delight to be here today. Thank you. Thank you so much.